Hello YouTube, this is Charlie426 and today we have something different to review. Finally, one of my packages has finally arrived after 2 attempts. This is the SIC series. This is the SIC Kamen Rider Kaiza and Delta set. Now the reason why I got this is number one, I am a big fan of Kamen Rider Delta in terms of his design. Now the user, if you've seen the main series of Kamen Rider 5, you know it's always been a little bit vague on like who is the actual owner or user of Kamen Rider Delta's gear. But once again, besides excluding all that aspect, I always loved how Kamen Rider Delta looked like and in terms of design, which is why I really wanted to get the SHF, but not too easy, so my second option was to get the SIC. Now, the reason why I bought this set is because this is the only way to get the SIC Kamen Rider Delta as far as I know. Kamen Rider 5s, Kaiza, you can get them separately, but Delta, this is the only way. Alright, so this is a 2-pack, which means I am not going to review them on one go. So this week I am going to review Kamen Rider Delta, and then maybe next week, if I have the time, I'll be reviewing Kamen Rider Kaiza, or depending on my pre-order stuff. Alright, so that's basically it. So I'll be right back with all the necessary components for Kamen Rider Delta. So I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. So here I have the basic setup of SIC Kamen Rider Delta. Now, Kamen Rider Delta in the series why it was the first rider / first belt to be made. However, while it has really good specs in terms of combat, it has the most physical capabilities in terms of the 3 riders, but it lacks in firepower because it only has the Delta Blaster, which is on the holster to the right side. So other than that, he doesn't really have any weapons. He doesn't have any close combat weapons. So yeah, he does really rely on his combat skills. Alright, so in terms of the equipment, first of all, what you get, of course, for Delta is that you don't really get much other than the rider himself. You get 3 sets of hands. So the 3 sets of hands is number 1, we have the fist hands that are currently attached, and then number 2 and 3 hands is number 1, we have the multi-purpose hands, which is pretty much will be used for holding or using the Delta Blaster, and then we have some semi-open hands as well. I am not sure how often we'll be using these hands for Kamen Rider Delta, but it is an option. And then the only other equipment you get is this case. Now, for those who haven't seen the Rider series, is that when it comes to Kamen Rider 5 series, for some reason they always store the belts in these cases. So Delta, I believe Delta has the smallest case because he only needs to store the belt strap and then the 2 equipment that he has. So in order to make the Delta Blaster, you combine the Delta phone. Well, to be fair, the Delta phone doesn't really look like a phone. It's basically just the handle of the gun, and then the other half section of the gun will be going in here, which is a camcorder. So yeah, it is kind of interesting that they added this detail, but yeah, it is an option. Alright, so let's start off with the review. So regarding, once again, as the title mentioned, this is the SIC figure. So a typical SHF figure or recent SHF figure will be a bit smaller than a SIC figure, so keep that in mind. Now, another thing that you should notice that now I have reviewed 2 SIC figures so far. Now one of them was more modern, the other one was a little bit older, but still had the similar format as a modern SIC figure. Now this being a much more older one, this has a little bit interesting aspects which I did not expect to see in a figure of modern, that we would never see in a modern day figure. So we'll get into that later, but for now let's start with the top to bottom review. So being a SIC figure, obviously this has a much more exaggerated design here, but at least the good part for Kamen Rider 5 is that they still retain most of the the basic designs here. So a little bit more exaggerated proportions, but design wise they do follow most of the basic design here and there. Alright, now let's get the head. Now the head definitely, I think it became a much more mellow design compared to the original, because when Kamen Rider Delta was introduced to the series, he was all about being mysterious and then also putting in fear to the enemies as well. So he actually had a very ghostly vibe. Every time he would pop out, he would just be shown on the camera and then walking away after killing something. So yeah. Anyway, so the design here, I'm really glad they maintained the visor feel here with all these lines up, so that they did a pretty good job on that. I think the only part that's lacking would be the mouthpiece, because of the specific mouthpiece of the original design, it definitely gave out that like, oh, I don't want to mess with that guy feel. But in this case, it just looks like a typical rider. So yeah, other than that, I think they did a really good job. So head articulation wise, you have the neck. The neck part also moves on its own, so you can go down actually a lot for what you get, and then up not so much. And then side to side movement is possible. Going about 90 degree is the best I can do without giving any strength. But if I force it, I think I can go a little bit more. But once again, there's a human inside. You don't, and that's not how human necks work. So yeah. And then there is a little bit of forward and backward movement if you want to do so. All right. Let's start, and then now let's start with the shoulder parts. Now the arm section, you do have a little bit of forward and backward movement here on the shoulder, but it barely moves because there's not much space in it. So you can see the arm can go rotate 360, which means that the shoulder armor is attached to the arm. Now design wise, it may look like it's connected to the main body, but that's just another inner layer thing going on here. So yeah, the arm is actually a separate piece. So and I mean the shoulder armor is a separate piece, so you don't need to worry about that. Oops, something fell off. And then now I'm not sure what's going on with the arm here. It looks like there's some sort of a layer here, so it looks like there's this cover here. It's not broken or ripped off. It's just like the design is just like that. So it does give out that a little bit awkward feeling, but nonetheless, it still, you know, is there. And then going to the side is not much of an option. No matter how much I pull and move, this is as far as I can go to the side, so less than 90 degree bend going on here. But you do get a 360 twist on the arm, but because of this armor piece is a separate thing, you can see only the arm rotates while this thing still stays in place. And now for the articulation part, which I found a little bit interesting, is that now usually, just to give you a typical example in Gunpla or SH figure, you can see there is a joint here. So, you know, obviously, there we go. So the arm, you can bend it like that, and that's pretty much it. There is no other articulation around here. However, if you look at this guy, this old figure, is that you can see there is a ball joint. The arm is a ball joint. There's a ball joint in midsection, so it's hard to grasp it. But once again, it has a little bit of free range of movement going on here. So in theory, you can just, if you can just rotate this part on its own. Now, mine is being a little bit stiff here, but yeah, there is a ball joint there, which is kind of odd, but still works. And despite having a ball joint, still the bend goes a little bit more than 90 degrees. So I guess they were still, you know, working out what would be the best type of joint in terms of these type of figures. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And the hands are obviously, you know, ball jointed hands, although a little bit different style of ball jointed hands, but they work, so no big deal. Now looking at the chest here, I never noticed this, but you can see this thing is actually a clear piece. Now, I'm not sure, I don't think you're able to take it off, but yeah, there is something inside there behind the clear piece, so kind of interesting. Now in the series, this part should be all closed off on the original design here, so you're not really supposed to see anything in there. So kind of an interesting design choice if you ask me. Alright, now let's look at the belt. Now first of all, when you get this figure in the box, the belt will be a separate piece. So this part here will be a separate piece, and this is, I think this is actually metal because it's actually very heavy as well. And then the mission memory will be also a separate piece. The mission memory is this small looking chip that's in the middle of the belt. So do not lose this part. This is actually one of the more important details going on here. So you can slap that on, and this piece can also slap on here, and it's a very firm connection, so you don't need to worry about losing it or falling off on its own. And here is another hole there. I think there is another hole here, but yeah, because Delta doesn't have much equipment, the only equipment you will be having will be his holster with the weapon here as well. We'll get into this later, so let me just detach this for now. Now the main connection point is a peg, so do be careful with this peg as well. Alright, now let's look at the legs here. Now the legs, it's a little bit stiff. I'm not sure what's going on in the joints here, but it looks like there's a big giant ball joint. So you do have a little bit of wiggle going on here, but not so much because the side design is just way too massive going on here. So going forward, not so much. I mean, I can force it a bit to go a little bit upwards, but that's as far as I can go. And if I force it to the angle here, a little bit, not straight, but a little bit to an angle, that is when you can actually go 90 degrees. So it's a bit awkward to deal with it, but you'll get the idea. Going backwards, not so much because of the chaps, I think that's what they call it, but yeah. And then going to the side, not so much as well. Now you saw the arm had a ball joint. Now the leg also has a ball joint here. You can see there is a ball joint there. So you might have seen the figure having a little bit awkward stance. It could go like that and that, which a human cannot ever do. I mean, if this happens to your leg, you're going to the hospital right away. But yeah, definitely an odd choice of a joint there, but still. That's how it works. And then bend wise, you get a little bit more than 90 degrees, but still you get my point. And then the feet wise, also once again ball joint, no big deal. So you get all the articulations of a typical feet in terms of a modern figure. Although the thing that's only missing would be that there's no toe bend, as far as I can tell. But the feet detail is top notch. I actually love how that looks. Alright, so we've seen the basics of the figure. I'll be right back with the first demonstration, which is holding the weapon, and then we'll see if this thing can do a rider kick. Okay, I'm back. So here we have Kamen Rider Delta holding his Delta Blaster. Now before we go into other specific details regarding the blaster, I think we need to talk about a few things first. Number one, I forgot to mention about the waist. So the waist, you have your basic ab crunch, side to side movement. Only the rotation part is a little bit limited. However, you know, being a figure, and then I believe it's mostly like the belt or the waist area designed shape-wise that's not allowing it to twist more than this. So that's that. Now regarding the Delta Blaster, now being a pistol type weapon, and then this figure not having a dedicated trigger finger hand, I think limits one of the more important play values here. So currently I am using the multi-purpose hand, and however, because of being the multi-purpose hand, there's no dedicated trigger finger, and you can definitely see the trigger part being out like that as a store of thumb. So depending on how you look at it or how you hold the weapon, this may feel or look a little bit awkward. Now there is another option, however, this is more of a personal preference thing, and once again, because of the ball jointed leg, it's getting some weird stance issues. But so once again, I'm gonna put it on the back there. So we have the semi-open hand. So let me just reconnect this here. We have semi-open hand. Now you can put it in the hand. It goes in, it slides in, and it does, and then it rests on the hand, but not the firmest grip here. So you can make this happen. However, it's gonna feel a little bit awkward. Now there is like this finger here that you can kind of use as a trigger finger. However, what you need to do is that you need to kind of force it to go in there. So actually, there's the wrong finger going in there. But once again, you can kind of force that to go in. However, the grip is not ideal. So that's the only part that I'm slightly disappointed at. I wish they actually had a dedicated trigger finger to do this. And if by any chance, if you hear any weird noises on the video, there's some sort of election campaign going on outside, and I hope my mic doesn't catch any of this. Anyway, so yeah, so neither hands are ideal, at least for me, so that's that. And finally, for those who are curious, yes, this weapon does actually have the finisher mode. So in the series, what they would do is that they would get the mission memory or this chip out from the belt. Now technically you would slide them out, not pull them out, and then they would slide it in here. Now there's a slot here, you just need to plug it in, and if you have the DX toy, what would happen is that this would unlock a spring mechanism, and this would push outwards. Oh, come on, please. It just worked. There we go. It's very stiff, so do be careful not to force it. Now, because if you force it, you can actually pull the entire thing off. So make sure you do it just the right amount, and then this would pull out. And then they would, being a voice command, they would, let's say, rider kick, I believe, and then it would fire a huge laser projectile, which would latch onto the enemy, and spinning around, they would throw a rider kick onto them and then finish them off. Now there is this screen here, you know. This is supposed to also be using as like a, how should I say, like a sight. So this would show the enemy if you're aiming correctly, but I think they only use it once. Most of the time they would use it without it, but still it's a pretty good, nice detail they did this. And the only thing that's left to show is the case. So now if you detach these two, this is the phone, which does not look like a phone at all. Even the toy does not really have that function. The only thing you can do is that you can pull the trigger and then say henshin, and it'll be voice command, and then you you connect it here, and the transformation sequence will happen. So in the toy, the belt here is just plastic, and there's no electronics. The electronics is in the handle. This part in the DX toy would also be plastic. So anyway, that's that. So, and then this front part is supposed to be a camcorder. Now, if you have the DX toy, it looks much more convincing than this one, but still, pretty good job. And then let me just get the mission memory back out there. So in order to put the belt inside the case, you just need this part. Now, technically, there's supposed to be a strap all the way around here as well, and then the holster should also follow. But once again, being a figure, being limited, so this is how it works. So you open up, and then the top part, you just slap these two in. There you go. And then on this side, you put this thing in, and then I believe this is the part where you put this part in. Now this part is a little bit tight fit. The bottom section is a little bit tight fit, but it fits like that, and you're good to go. And all the stuff are in here. And then I assume you can use the multi-purpose hands to carry this around, but once again, there's no way Delta would be carrying the Delta case equipment like this, because he needs a belt to transform. So my guess is that maybe you can use Kaiza to carry this around, but still pretty good detail as well. And that is pretty much it for the review. So once again, being a big fan of the design of Kamen Rider Delta, I'm glad that I own this. But once again, I do wish the hand, there was maybe another set of hands, like a dedicated trigger finger hand, to have more play value on that. Because as much as I could technically use this, but it feels awkward, and then the grip isn't ideal, at least for me. But being a fan, I'm just glad that I have this. Maybe in the future I'll try to get the SHF version, or unless Bandai makes a 2.0 version of the SHF version. Now that would be something. And then I do wish they actually would start, please making a product, SHF version, or for the SIC version, they could release a 2.0 of Delta, and then also release the Jet Slinger, which is his vehicle, which is a very, very badass vehicle, which I hope I can get to review someday in the future. There is a remote control version of it, but it's not ideal. Anyway, thanks for watching the review. This was the review of the SIC Kamen Rider Kaiza and Delta set. This was the Delta part. Hopefully next week I can actually upload the Kaiza version as well. If you guys got any questions or requests, leave a comment below. I still have more stuff to buy and build and make reviews on, so please stay tuned. Until then, see you guys next time.